Hello everybody and welcome to the new Cube Vanguard series called the CKA. So what does the CKA stand for? It stands for Certified Kubernetes Administrator. I did this exam and passed the certification 3 years ago. So this summer, guess what? I get to do it again. But this time I decided not to go at it alone. I'm also going to do a little series every week, take a little portion of it, and on my desktop, on my laptop, show some of the various parts of the CKA or what it's talking about, trying to explain it. And that way, do a bit of a revision and also help people out. Now, you don't have to use Rancher Desktop on your laptop. You can use Minikube, MicroKS, or Docker Desktop, something of that nature. The main thing is you have some kind of a Kubernetes distribution local on your laptop so you can practice. Because for this exam, practice is essential. So a bit about the exam. The exam's performance-based. What that means is not multiple choice. It means you're given scenarios and you're given a command line and you have to fix things and you have to do things. You are given access to the Kubernetes documentation. However, that's not such a good thing because all it means is you can take things like YAML files out, copy and paste, and redo them. But there's no way that during the exam you can learn something on the fly because you won't have time. What they've tried to do in this exam is create a kind of work-like scenario. So it's like a real failure in a real production environment and you have pressures of time, you have to get things fixed. So it's difficult. And the documentation can help you to quickly remember something, or as I said, to grab an example YAML file, so you don't have to type it out obviously, but you're never going to be able to figure things out that quickly. There are things you can do too. For instance, the command line, you can do kubectl explain, help, whatnot. You can do things like that. But really, to pass this exam, you have to know what you're doing when you go into the exam, obviously, but you also have to know how to do it quickly. And that means finger muscle memory as well. You have to be able to type quickly without typos. So let's take a look at this exam, what it's all about. Today, it's going to be kind of introductory. We're going to talk about it and different things you can do. And then next week, we will go into some of the areas. Okay, so here is the Linux Foundation page. And right off the bat, you see the price. Ooh, $395 American dollars. And if you want to take their course, it's going to be $595. So right off the bat, I'll say, go and look for discounts. Okay, there are discounts out there, coupons. I've never had to pay full price for the exam. That is a lot of money. On the bright side, they give you 2 chances. So if you fail the first time, you do get a second chance. Okay? Again, though, good to look for discounts. Now, the bundle. Take the bundle, yes or no? My personal opinion is no. I didn't find the Linux Foundation training to be very helpful because for this type of an exam, you need to practice. Even if you memorize everything, it's not going to help you if you can't type quickly or you don't have little tricks or you haven't been in this situation beforehand. Now, the exam does give you 2 free shots at Kim Verschenstuft, I can't remember his last name, Killer Shell is his website, his practice exams, and they are very difficult. That's why they're called Killer Shell. So you do get 2 attempts at those. I found those exams to be actually harder, the practice exams, than the real exam, but you need more than that. That's why I recommend personally to go to CodeCloud. They not only have an excellent CKA course, with labs and practice exams. They also have a whole CKA challenge of 10 mock exams, okay? You can't go wrong with that. And apart from that, you need to practice, practice, practice. Okay, so what does this tell us on this page? Well, first of all, as I said, it's a performance exam and it's proctored, okay? You can't go to a test center of this. I mean, you could, I guess, if they rent out a room, but it's going to be proctored. So someone's going to be watching you, and you're going to have to show them the room. You're going to have to show them identification, and that can be a bit nerve-wracking, especially before the exam, so you have to prepare for that. Take 15 minutes. They might ask to look on your table 5 times. You never know. So be prepared for that. Now, this exam is now 2 hours. When I did it, it was 3 hours, but they've taken out a lot of the security to put into a new exam called the CKS, which I did in November 2021, so I have to redo it this year because it's only 2 years. This one's valid for 3 years, okay? You got 1 retake, and a very important thing I'm going to point out right away is software version. So if you buy the exam now and you decide to do it in 6 months or whatever, make sure you go back and check what version of Kubernetes, because between the versions, there can be changes in the commands or other changes. You want to make certain that you're aware of which one you're going to do. Okay, on this page, it also shows you the domains and competencies, as it calls them. So storage, troubleshooting, cluster architecture, whatnot. I'm not going to necessarily go through in that order, but I will touch upon these subjects. Now, for some of them, for especially networking, I'll probably have to bring up a little multi-node cluster on my laptop, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So you can't just do that with a single node cluster, obviously, because you're going to have to, with network policies, send things between nodes and pods, whatnot. I mean, you could, I guess, but it's better to have multi-node in that case, I believe. Well, I guess, yeah, names. We'll see. I'm going to show you different ways of doing this so that you're flexible. Okay, so also very important and not to be ignored is they have the candidate requirements. Okay, so this is going to give you some information of how this exam is going to be given to you. They use something called the PCI Secure Browser, and you need to prepare this beforehand. You need to test your system beforehand. You don't want to do this the same day. And so I really go through this. This is called the handbook. This is the candidate handbook. So it's not one of those things, well, I'm not going to read it, it's boring. No, make sure you read it, go through it once. It's got a lot of important information. You don't want to find stuff out the day of the exam, right? You can reschedule the exam, I believe, if you do so 24 hours in advance. Once the 24-hour mark is passed, guess what? You're doing the exam ready or not. Okay, here's some important instructions as well. Now, they're giving you more information here. The exam consists of 15 to 20 performance-based tasks. So this is for the CKA and the CKD, which are similar. I've done them both. Some people say that CKD is easier. I didn't find that. I find them equally challenging in different departments. All right, so what else can I say about this exam? Well, an important thing to remember is that in these exams, they have something called weight, okay? Not as in wait for something, but as in weight of questions. And this is very important because what can happen, and I've seen this, you can get a question which is really complicated and the weight says like 2. Okay, now, and I don't really understand their weighting because like 12 or 9, then 2 and 3. The important thing is that the ones that have heavier weight are going to give you more points for your overall score. So one of the tricks that they do is they'll give you a difficult question which has like a very small weight, and you get stuck on that, wasting time. And time is your biggest enemy in this exam, apart from not knowing the subject, obviously, because you can run out of time. All three of my big exams, performance exams of Linux Foundation, so the CKD, the CKS, and the CKA, I have gone right to the limit. So right at the final second, I've pressed the button to end the exam. So time's important. So what you want to do is go through the exam, at least, and it's my technique of doing it, and you want to immediately look at the weight of the question and then attempt it. Another important thing is you have different clusters in the exam. It's not just one cluster, and it'll say, okay, in this cluster, do this question. And it'll even give you, I believe, at least it used to, the command to switch contexts, okay? You must do that because you could answer the question correctly, but on the wrong cluster. And guess what? You don't get points for that. So weight's important. If you get stuck on a question and it's got small weight, move on. In fact, if you get stuck on any question for too long, move on. Just put a mark to go back to it because it's more important to try to at least get the heavyweight questions and at least to get as many done, okay? So that's important as well. When I talked about typing and whatnot, well, you want to be familiar with aliases. I think now in the exam they've already set up the aliases. So instead of typing kubectl, you type K. You also want to use shortened versions. So if you want to see, for instance, the number of pods, K get PO, anything that can cut down your typing and your potential for making typos, which, make mistakes that way. So that's important, the aliases. Another important thing is to be friendly or know very intimately a command line editor. So I personally will say to go to V because V is on every Unix Linux system, but some people prefer Nano. And I think Nano is an exam, you want to check that, but make sure you know how to paste things in properly so that the alignments don't get messed up. Remember, YAML files, if the alignment's messed up, it won't accept it, and you can spend a lot of time trying to find where something's not properly set in your YAML file. So those are two important things. Apart from that, you want to practice. Again, the more you can just do on the fly, when it comes to troubleshooting, again, practice tests will help you. But again, you're going to remember a couple of things. For instance, kubectl describe, very important. Describe a deployment, describe a pod. And you can use things like kubectl explain, kubectl help, that'll help you as well. All sorts of little tricks, which we'll go through as well. As far as time is concerned, it used to be 3 hours, now it's 2 hours. I don't know if that's better or worse. When I did it and it was 3 hours, the entire 3 hours was actually working and finished right at the bell. Yeah, so it was tight. What else can I say about the exam? You get 2 chances, so very important. So if you do go on, it's your first performance-based exam, you don't have to worry, you've got a second chance, okay? And that's within a year. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is every week I'm going to bring a subject out. For instance, maybe next week I'll talk about, for instance, RBAC, maybe. I don't know, I'll decide. And I will make some examples of RBAC. So cluster roles, the differences, I'll actually do them. So I'll talk about them and I'll do them. I'll create a role in a namespace. I'll create a cluster role and whatnot. Here, of course, says use ADM to install a basic cluster. So there's an example of where I won't be able to use Rancher Desktop. I'll have to have like 3 virtual machines to create a ADM cluster. Or Vagrant, you can use Vagrant on your laptop. Depends on the amount of resources. But basically you need to have 3 virtual machines, whatnot, to have 3 nodes, okay? All right, once you do complete this exam, it's a very good feeling because it is one that you're gonna earn. There's no way of getting through this easily. Unless you've worked with Kubernetes for years, and even then you have to be ready for the environment. If there are any suggestions from people who, let's say, have taken the exam and have failed and don't understand why they failed, please write me and I'll try to help out as best as possible. In my experience, from what I've heard, people normally fail this because they do not plan their time properly and they run out of time. So they get stuck on a question and they don't finish it, and then they don't end up finishing another question too because they spent too much time on the first question. Okay, so that's going to be it for this week. Next week we're going to start. So I will probably start off with just a refresher of how to install Rancher Desktop on your laptop because that's what I'm going to use, but you're welcome to use any other system. Okay, we'll see you next week and get ready to learn the CKA and prepare for the exam. Bye-bye.